Hello,
Mario.
Ernie. Before we start, I mentioned to each about this man Shoshani. That
Say that
is,
again. Say that again.
remember the rabbi mentioned about
Yes. Shoshani.
Shoshani. Icho met him
Wow.
in Uruguay. He died in Uruguay and is buried in Uruguay.
Yeah.
It's,
Apparently, he was a world-class scholar, like a genius.
he was a genius. He knew everything of everything, but nobody knows his name. Actually, I read the story. His Metzever says Professor Sistani, genius, whatever, but no names. You know who donated the Metzever? The guy who was his student,
Elie Wiesel.
Elie Wiesel. That's funny. I lived in Uruguay until 1972. I never heard of him.
Right.
Anyhow.
Okay. So we're on 39, Lamed Tes.
Mhm.
We're talking about when an owner of an animal, the shoichet shechtzit, and the owner of the animal has an idea of avodah zarah. Well, in the Beis Hamikdash, only the Kohen who has a bad idea affects the korban. The owner doesn't do it. So that's why we don't learn from Beis Hamikdash to Chullin. He says we do learn the various rules from the Chullin from Beis Hamikdash. So there, the owners, if according to Rabbi Eliezer, the owner's intent can disqualify it, so too will the owner's intent by Chullin. But us Rabbi Yossi Lememer, no, I feel b'fnei nami zemachashav zeovid lo amrinan. We don't hold that way. Only the Kohen has the right when he does the avoda, that if he has an improper machshava, it can disqualify the korban. But the owner doesn't have any say in that. Itmar. Somebody is shechting a behem, he wants to eat the meat. But then he has in mind to throw the blood to an idolatry. Or lahaktir chelbel. Now, those things are done in the Beis Hamikdash. They're not done by Chullin. Now, if he's going to do Zrika Saddam to an Avodah Zarah, that's something that is prohibited. But it may not necessarily make the animal forbidden. Because the Shechita was done for regular purposes. Rabbi Yochanan Psula. Rabbi Yochanan says you can't, the animal is forbidden. Reish Lakish Amar Muteres. Now, why does Rabbi Yochanan Psula? Mechashvin avoda lavoda. Just like when you shecht a korban in the Beis Hamikdash, during Shechita, which is one avoda, you can have an improper intent about Zrika, which is another avoda. That's called mechashvin me'avoda lavoda. Just like we can do it inside, yalfinan chutz mifnim, and we can learn the din of outside shechita from inside shechita. So just like you can do it on the inside, it passes on the outside. You cannot have intent during one avoda, having an intent during another avoda. Because we don't say what goes on in the Beis Hamikdash applies outside. They're both consistent. The itmar. Shachta lishma. Somebody shechted a korban chatas for a korban chatas, but lizrok dama shelo lishma. But the zrika would be done for a shlami. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Psula, Rabbi Shimon Beis Lakish Amar Ksheira. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Psula because mechashvim avoda lavoda. having a thought during one avoda does play a role in the other avoda. The gamrina machshavas pigul. We learn that from pigul. Reish Lakish amar kshera, because ein mechashrin me'avoda lo gamrina machshavas pigul. Now, why did I need this machlokas, Rabbi Yochanan, Reish Lakish, both in the case of shechting lavodah zara and shechting in the base of Midrash for a chatas, tricha? The it marbahav, I've only told the machlokas when the guy shechts for avodah zara, b'hakom Rav Reish Lakish. Mishum dechutz mifnim lo yalfinan. He doesn't learn that you learn laws of shchitas chulin from the base of Mikdash. Ava pnim mipnim, but in the case of a chatas, which is you're learning it from other laws of kotchim, maybe Rav Yochanan, maybe you would agree with Rav Yochanan that it would be possible. So we have to be pulled. No, that it's kosher according to Reish Lakish. If the machlokas was only by the chatas, ba'yikom Rav Yochanan. There, having one kavana during another avoda works because we know that pigul works. Aval baha, but in chulin outside, it may be aim model Rabbi Shimon Reish Lakish. Maybe he'll agree that it's okay. Tzricha. So we needed the machlokas in both cases. Mosif Rav Sheshes, Rabbi Yosi. Kal v'chomer advarim umabam bakum shemachshava pusas b'mugdashim. By the base of Mikdash korbanos, an improper machshava will invalidate. But ena kol hoylech ela achar avoid. That's only the one who does the avodah, the kohen, not the owner, that can have a disqualifying thought. Malkum shein machshava pusas b'chulin. Now, outside the base of Mikdash, there's no thoughts that are improper. So if you can have an improper thought, like about avodah zara, it should also not have anything to do with the owner of the animal, but rather the one who does the shechita. Now, what does it mean? My ein machshava poises b'chul. What do you mean? You can't have an improper thought by chulin. There are cases, right? Otherwise, how will you ever prohibit an animal when someone shechts lavodah zara? Of course you can prohibit. What we're talking about, having in mind during shechita to do, let's say, zrika, a different avodah. If you're going to tell me that it works by chulin, that it works by hegdish. In hegdish, certainly, during shechita, you can have avodah of zrika, but it only is operative by the guy who does the avodah of the kohen. But in outside, we're having a thought during shechita does not impact any other avodah. The improper thought of avodah zarah should follow the shoichet, not the owner. Now, Rabbi Yosi is a kasha both on Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. Pnim kasha Rabbi Shimon Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yosi says that in the base of Mikdash, having an improper intent during one avodah will passel another avodah, which Reish Lakish doesn't hold of. Chutz kasha Rabbi Yochanan. And Rabbi Yochanan says you can translate improper thought from inside to the outside, and Rabbi Yosi says you can't. So Bishma Pnim Reish Lakish loy kasha haMekayim D'Shamim Rabbi Yochanan haLavosah D'Shamim Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish changed his mind after he heard the halacha from Rabbi Yochanan. Ela chutz kasha Rabbi Yochanan. How does Rabbi Yochanan resolve the issue? Who moisif lavu mefarkla? Rav Sheshes answered. The arba voidas. Rabbi Yosi is talking about shchita, kabbalah, hoylach, and zrika. Vachi kamer. B'mokem shemachshava posels b'mugdoshim ba'arba voidas. There, if you have an improper kavanah during any of those avodas, ein hakol hoylach ela achra oived. The only person who can invalidate is the kohen himself. Mokem she'en machshava posels b'chulin el b'shtei avodas. By chulin, there's only two avoidot where you could be liable for avodah zarah: shchita and zrika sadam. Well, there as well, it's the shoichet who has this thought and not the owner. Tanya Kavosid Rav Yochanan. There's a brisa like Rav Yochanan. Somebody shechts an animal and has a kavana to throw the blood for avodah zarah, or lahakter chebel avodas kachavim. Elu zivchei mesim. It's asur banoah. Shachtu v'achakach kishav aleh. You shechted, and then you said, "I'm going to throw its blood." Zaya ma'isa b'kisur v'lo amru bo lo yisur v'lo heter. The rabbis said there is no. They didn't say it was asur or mutter. He didn't say anything at the time of the shechita, so we don't know. Amr Rav Chizah lo amru kach ba'isur mishum kavod in the Rabbana. The Chachamim of our Mishnah didn't automatically assume that your kavanah is for avodah zarah, unless you said it. So they didn't prohibit because of the Chachamim. But Rabbi Eliezer lo hitter mishum kavod Rabbi Eliezer. But Rabbi Eliezer, who did think that the kavanah of somebody who worshipped avodah zarah was always there, so that's why they didn't matir. Now mimai. In a case where we don't hear what the guy had to say, he didn't say anything, so fine, they don't assume that he had that machshava. Later on, he said it, so that proves his mindset at the end tells us what he was thinking about at the beginning with shchita, or vice versa. By goyim, stam machshavas of kachavim over his kachavim. They're always thinking about idolatry. Avi Yisrael, we don't say this concept that what he said at the end proves what he thought in the beginning. So El Amrav Shizbi lo Amruba Heter Mishum Kvod Rav Shimon Gamliel. The reason I didn't say it was permitted because of the cover of Rav Shimon Gamliel. Because he says whatever happens at the end, and the guy did talk about avodah zarah at the end, that sort of tells us what it was like in the beginning. The Gemara wants to know which Rav Shimon Gamliel. Hey, Rav Shimon Gamliel. Ilay Rav Shimon Gamliel de Gittin. This not. Habori sha'omer kisvi get ishi. Healthy man. If somebody's on his deathbed, and he wants his wife not to fall to his brother Liyibu, so he divorces her, and he says, write a get from my wife. Now, normally if you say write a get and you don't say and give it, so you can't give the get. Now, a guy on his deathbed, shchivmara, if he just says a kois of get, you can write it and give it. But this guy's a healthy guy. And rotza l'sachik bo. He had no intent to give the get. Umayse b'bor sha'amar kisvu get l'ishti, there was a case. But he went up on the roof, and he fell off the roof and died. So, on Rav Shimon Gamliel, if he committed suicide, then obviously he was thinking about it, and therefore you can give the get because he wanted the get to be chal so that she wouldn't fall yibum to her brother. But if the wind blew him off, get, because he was not really serious. My solicitor, why are you bringing me a case which is exactly opposite what the Mishnah said? So the Gemara says, there's some words missing. If the person's words at the end, that tells us what he was thinking about in the beginning. So, and then I raise a get. Healthy person said, write a get. He went up to the roof and he fell. If he committed suicide, it's a good get. So that's the Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. The Gemara says, listen, he gave some intent. He said, write a get. But in our case, with the shechita, the guy didn't say anything. So how do we know what he was thinking? A different Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, the Tanya. A person gave away all of his assets. There were slaves. The one who was given the gift said, I don't want that. Imhaya Rabbi Sheni Kohen, if the guy that he was trying to give the gift to was a Kohen, Hare Elu Oichlin Truma. They eat Truma. Like any Eved that belongs to a Kohen. Since he said, I don't want them, he doesn't get them. The heirs of the first guy get them. We analyzed. In the first case where he says that the avodim eat truma, even if he's standing and yelling, I don't want them, I don't want them. If right away he's yelling that he doesn't want it, so there's no argument, he doesn't get it. If he's quiet, only later, there's no argument, he acquires them. Somebody else sort of was coining it on his behalf. And initially, initially the Kohen was quiet, only later on protested. Since he was silent when he heard that somebody had got it for him, he acquires it. Now that he's yelling about it, he changed his mind. But Reb Shimon Gamliel, no, his protesting at the end tells us what his mindset was like at the beginning. Why didn't he protest from the beginning? Why should I yell and scream if I don't have them yet? That an owner's intent of an animal has no action on the animal. There were some Arabs who came to this place, Sikunya. Israel. They brought sheep and they told the Jewish butchers to shech them. Give us the blood and the fats. Now they used that for Avodah Zarah. And you keep the meat. So the question was sent. The fact that the Arabs were thinking about Avodah Zarah, does that prohibit the meat for the Jew? That the owner's kavanah has no effect. Only the shoichet would. The Rabbi Ezer, if the goy gave $1 to one of the butchers to buy some of it, what's the halacha? Rabbi Eliezer assumed, even if the goy didn't express it, that he believes in Avodah Zarah. If the goy is a mafia guy, and he can't give the money back to reverse the sale, then the Jew can't eat it. That means here's your money back, and here's a mountain, and here's your head, and go bang the two against each other. So he can back out of the deal. Okay, we'll stop here, the new Mishnah.
Okay.
Tomorrow, 7 o'clock.
Okay, where's everybody?
Harold and Magda went, right? They